One of the intriguing things, or at least historical evidence about markets, is that a lot of Africans originally thought or tended to perceive free trade as a Western concept. But if you look back at the African history, you find that there were a lot of kingdoms that prospered because they had free trade. We had huge kingdoms with what we would consider very prosperous. These kingdoms prospered because of trade, and they fell the moment the barriers to trade were erected. Over the last few decades, Africa has made substantial progress in poverty reduction. This has been not because of discovery of new resources or access to new farmlands. This has been because of larger markets due to free trade. So any idea that we can go back and increase the trade barriers would be taking us very far back and will increase poverty in Africa. The poor in Africa and many other countries have suffered a lot. And in fact, the reason that they have been poor is because they don't have access to markets. They have not been able to participate in market activities, and thus they have remained poor. Free trade has provided them with opportunities to enter the markets and exchange. And in fact, over the last few decades, the poor have benefited a lot because of conditions that have improved their participation in markets. So any idea or any reversal to protectionism will harm the poor. In fact, I would consider it a crime against the poor to increase trade barriers. We don't manufacture drugs in Africa, and medicines and so on. And of course, health is a big issue in Africa. And the only way we can access a lot of drugs is through the markets. Unfortunately, because of various restrictions, we have not been able to achieve or to get access to important drugs where there are restrictions. So one of the things that I like about free trade, as we opened and we even started getting drugs from the East, you find that we've been able to deal with a lot of diseases because of trade. We cannot prevent people from buying drugs from outside the country and then talk that we are interested about their health. So that's very important for us to be able to deal with health issues through trade. In Africa, we have a lot of poverty, so one would wonder what it is that we are protecting, unless we are protecting poverty. So it does not increase wages, it does not increase the goods and services that we have. We don't have any record in history that protectionism actually protects anything valuable. It would only protect those things that we don't want, like poverty. For a long time, there are a lot of people who have thought that adopting policies, protectionism policies, would create jobs. But these are often driven by interest groups, not necessarily for the general good of the population. We don't have any situation where protectionism creates wealth and thus does not create jobs. Instead, protectionism destroys jobs and wealth. One of the things that we are interested in is really dealing with human rights issues, which have to do with a lot of progressive realization of well-being of individuals. And we find that issues of trade do harm, or protectionism does harm the poor, which in essence violates their rights. And thus it's a human rights issue in many respects, because it undermines their opportunities, and thus it's a moral issue from that standpoint. Human rights, a concept in human rights that you should be able to use your skills to the maximum. When you are able to utilize your skills so that you can attain a living and improve your standard of living, then that is a right. But if we create barriers to trade so that individuals are not able to engage or to utilize their skills fully, then that becomes a violation of human rights. In essence, free trade is a human right. We have a problem of ethnic conflict in many parts of the country. But when nations and groups of people trade or enter into transactions, they become interdependent. They rely on each other. My well-being is dependent on other group. So although we may not necessarily have any other thing in common, trade puts tie us together. What we find then is that where you have extensive trade between communities, they also live in peace. And free trade is probably the most important instrument of achieving peace, even in Africa and other communities.